All right, we are live. Potter Buchanan show. Mr. Melanson, how are you?
What's happening, man?
Not
I'm
much.
solid.
You're
I'm
good,
solid.
good. I
How are you?
appreciate doing well, all things considered, holidays coming up. Just try to do as much as I can, get the leaves out of the backyard before the people come over. How about yourself?
Good. Gearing up here for Thanksgiving on Thursday. I got to work, so obviously you're familiar with side gig at the bar on the weekends. Blackout Wednesday tomorrow with everyone drinking. So working tomorrow night, and then rest of the weekend as well. And then got a few things planned on Sunday. Little romantic afternoon at Snowport
That's
there in Seaport. So it'll be good.
that's beautiful. Oh yeah, the capo thing. So, what are the requirements to become a door guy? Is it just be tall and jacked, or is there other things you have to have on your resume? Because you're essentially
No,
warding off any potential hammered individuals who shouldn't go in.
yeah. I mean, honestly, so I'm more downstairs, right?
Okay.
I'll work the floor sometimes, but I'm more in the mix. But no, I mean, a lot of guys are taller, but that I don't think that's really a requirement. But it is. It definitely helps to be tall and
Well,
then
I think,
put on some
yeah,
muscle, right?
yeah, it brings the intimidation factor. So, how many? Because I never really talked to you about this. Is a normal night like you're dealing with a lot of people and having to kick them out, or like because Southie can get rowdy out there? Like, do you have to
Yeah.
like mentally prepare before you're going in, or how is it?
No, honestly, it's like I at this point I genuinely enjoy it. Like it's a little bit of routine, but it's fun to be there. And that's like, I mean, that reality is that's kind of how I met people moving out to Boston, right? And that's how I kind of found my core group of guys. But so it is fun, right? It's almost like you're out on a weekend night, except you're
Yeah,
you're doing it sober. But no, I don't know. Yeah, we are kicking people out, but it is like I don't think people realize the difference of being in a bar sober versus being hammered, right? It's like, hey man, you're kind of tripping all over the place. You're not really, you're swaying back and forth. Like, I think it's time to go. And then sometimes it can be a battle like, oh, I've only had two drinks. It's like, yeah, you've only had two drinks in the last 15 minutes, but you're going to have to leave because you're a little too drunk to be here. Especially Boston too. Boston is pretty strict on that, like with just people being too intoxicated, and then capacity wise. So it is, yes, it's a part-time job, but there is an aspect of like having to take it seriously, right? So yeah, but it's good. But there's there's definitely a couple times I'm walking people out on a weekend night, right? But it's not like
yeah,
every 5 minutes. But it's just different being there, intoxicated versus sober, right? You just don't really have any patience for it. You're kind of like, okay, like you know, this person doesn't realize that I'm dead sober and they're not even going to remember talking about this.
yeah. It's a bizarre because I do usually dry January, and sometimes I'll hit the bar with the boys, and it's just like you're kind of in a different dimension when everyone else
Yeah.
is like intoxicated around you, and it's just like this is where I am like normally, and it's so fun,
Yeah.
and it's just like what am I doing here? But
Yeah.
no, it's
It's almost like talking to people with like some sort of dementia or Alzheimer's. Like they say something to you, and like if you're drinking, like normally you wouldn't really think twice about it, but like when you're sitting there sober, it's like, dude, you just said the same thing to me 10 minutes ago. Like, are you not kind of what, like you said, like what realm are you really in? So,
yeah.
but yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, 12 years ago, I think you'd be, kindly escorting me out of there, but thankfully thankfully, those days are over for me. So talking about life and stuff, one thing so when I first became an SDR manager, you were one of my SDRs, which is kinda
Hmm.
crazy. One thing I always admired about you, though, is, like, you always had, like, a serious mentality with the way you approach things. It seems like you had a process. You're always trying to, like, learn and grow. You're on the Potter Buchanan show. Obviously, this is your number one podcast for information, news, events, everything. But what do you listen to in like day to day to like I know that you're posting about podcasts, trying to find like mindfulness, trying to learn. What do you listen to read? What are you listening to reading now that like helps you stay on track and helps you stay motivated?
There's definitely a couple different things. I mean, for something I listen to, like, right, there's different aspects of it, right? There can be something for I go to for, okay, how do I kind of get my mindset right? Something I go to for business and how do I, keep up with current events and stuff like that. Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson, he's a British guy, moved here, he's in Austin now. He's definitely one I listen to consistently, and he's more of that, like, kind of like like basically just getting your mindset right, right? And like he has people on. He'll do some kind of stuff where it's just him talking to the camera when he reaches, X amount of subscribers or X amount of followers, whatever. But he's very he's very good because he kind of he recycles stuff, right? And like I think sometimes it's like, oh, they're just repeating stuff that other people say. And it's like, yeah, but like that's good shit that he's talking about. So like I probably need to hear that, 100 more times, right? So he's good. I actually just saw him in person a
Nice.
couple or week and a half ago at the Wilbur downtown for a live show. And that's like it's like the same thing, right? He's everything I've already heard him say, he talked about, but it's all valuable stuff, right? So I think for him, like there's one of the things he talks about, right, is like doing the thing. And he has this whole list of what not doing the thing is. You know, planning to do the thing is not doing the thing, right? Scheduling time to do the thing, talking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Thinking about doing the thing is not doing the thing, right? The only thing that is doing the thing is doing the thing, right? So that like it's little reminders like that he continuously talks about that I think are very solid and very helpful. So he does. It's not like I'm listening to him, all the time, right? But he does. I think Monday, Thursday, Saturday, he has a podcast episode where he has people on. Most recently, a couple weeks ago or a month ago, maybe he had Matthew McConaughey on. I thought
Oh,
I'd
he's
definitely listen to that one twice. Naval Ravikant, who's a venture capitalist, but he's like this, spiritual guy, wisdom guy at the same time. He had him on a while back. That was definitely one of my more favorite ones. But I think all of his stuff is good, right? For just kind of, you know, hearing different perspectives and getting your mind right on life and kind of finding direction. From a Jordan Peterson, I think from just a life perspective, I listen to, and I know he's kind of controversial because he kind of gets into the culture war stuff. But like, if you take his book, 12 Rules for Life, right? And it's, stand up straight with your shoulders back, you know, pursue what's meaningful, not what's expedient, compare yourself to who you are or who you were yesterday, not to someone else, who someone else is today, right? And I think with Instagram, that like, you know, especially my age group, like we all kind of fall into that, right? You're watching someone's highlight reel 24/7 on Instagram. And then, but that's the same thing. Like I've heard arguments like, okay, well, that's common sense, those 12 rules. And it's like, yeah, dude, but people need that shit. You know what I mean? So Peterson, I definitely listen to. I think he's been going through some health issues. So he hasn't been in the mix as much the last couple months, but he's another one for, life or spirituality. There's a Patrick David. I'll go to him for like business or politics, right? I think he's someone that's very necessary, right? When you have all these different conflicting views, you know, you can tell which side he leans, but he's not someone to kind of shy away from the truth. He has different voices on from all sides, looks at things from a very strategic view, no matter what he's talking about, right? Kind of weighing all the different possibilities. He's someone I definitely listen to on a weekly basis. And then as well for business, the All In Pod. So that's
yeah,
for former
yeah. I know
Silicon
you
Valley
always.
guys, Chamath, Polly Apatia, David Sachs, David Freeberg, and then Jason Calacanis. They all come from the tech background and they have a really good balance, I think, of, you know, balancing the political aspect and how it affects business. And then also kind of seeing things from a almost an entrepreneurial perspective, right? Like they've all had skin in the game. They've all brought up their own business. It's not like they're just some talking pieces. Um, So, yeah, that's, I think, so Modern Wisdom, Jordan Peterson, Patrick David, PBD podcast, and then All In podcast, I think are definitely things I'm listening to on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and I think with all of those, there's an aspect of like PBD. I don't know as much, but he is like motivational in the sense of like what he's done in his life, like kind of where he comes from. But it's all like people pushing forward and trying to get better or trying to inform you of something they think's important. So, like, it's kinda all value add stuff, and I think that's what you look to try to do, which I admire. A lot of the stuff I listen to is, like, and take me away from whatever I'm doing right now, but I'm trying to be more cognizant each day. Like you mentioned, the thing is just like, what's in front of me and what can I accomplish? Like, speaking of that,
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk about this. So
Well, real quick to that
yeah,
PVD point, and I think this is one of the reasons, like, I really appreciate him. It's like the guy came from Iran. He was an
yeah,
Iranian refugee, spent a couple of years in Germany at a refugee camp, made it here. I think his dad worked at like a 99-cent store, right? Like a dollar store. And then, you know, built himself up into this person, right? So when I go to like, even for books, I'll just go to, all right, who's someone I appreciate, who's someone I admire, and I'll just go off their reading list. You know what I mean? Because most guys have that, right? Chris Williamson has a reading list, like Goodreads or there's some website that, like, if you just look at like XYZ business person, what books do they like to read, right? And then it's
yeah.
like, okay, now you're reading, like, you want to think how they think, right? You want their kind of mindset and perspective. So, what is we call it content now, right? Because we're exposed to so much on social media and all that. But like, what is the content that you want to put in yourself, right? It's similar to like, what's a diet, right? What kind of diet do you want to, put in your body? So it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like, we're talking about it now and it seems like, all my stuff is just motivational stuff. It's not. Like, I fall into the trap of Instagram and getting sucked into like all the nonsense, right? I think there is a need for that sometimes to kind of decompress. But yeah, so I cut you off, but yeah, go on.
Well, some of the reels are excellent. If you get some good comedy ones, you can get
Yeah.
sucked in that
I
vortex
would
for a while.
I'm not on TikTok though. I would, if I were on TikTok, I'd be on my phone like 10 hours a day.
I know. I haven't done it yet. I've thought about launching the show on TikTok just because that's, like, where most people are, but I just haven't been able to pull the trigger yet. Speaking on, like, the motivational piece, though, like, so I started this podcast when I got laid off. I just wanted to talk to different people doing different things, see what drives them. So you were my SDR for, I don't even know, it was like 5 months, got moved teams, and then you reached your path, like, year and a half, and we're looking for promotions. And it took a while for you. Like, kind of how was that experience? I think a lot of people in the SDR, BDR, it's like your first time sales role. They always like, I gotta get promoted, I gotta get promoted. And they tend to get discouraged, they get down. But like, you stuck with it and were able to get promoted at your own company. Everyone should try to do, right? You want to see that first promotion with the company that hired you. Like, what was that process like? How did you, obviously, you can tell if you did get down during it and kind of like how you felt, but like ultimately, what did that process look like for you?
Yeah. I think, you definitely do get down. Like, that's not, that's a reality of it, right? Especially you see other people getting promoted and doing their stuff, and you're in the same role that you started in. Um, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it was like, okay, I took this job at Oracle. This is a very solid company. It's a very competitive company. It's not like, okay, they have bigger fish to fry other than, I'm an SDR. I've been here for 12 months. Where's my promotion? You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
hundreds of billion-dollar company. They have, reality is they have bigger fish to fry. And with that, there's more people that work at the company. It's more competitive. So I don't know. I think you kind of have to take it as like one of the ways I took it. And like, it was frustrating, right? I would get frustrated at times, but you kind of have to go back and seeking out, keep seeking out feedback. And I know that's a little easier said than done, but it's like, okay, what can I do to improve, right? When this opportunity comes up again, what do you know, how do I improve, right? I think, Tom Brady, I think, talked about this, but he was I can't remember if it was at Michigan or when he was with the Patriots. I think it was when he was at Michigan and he was like the third string or something. So he only got in practice, I think he only got like 10 reps of practice. And maybe I'm telling this story wrong, but his mindset was like, these have to be like perfect. So when this opportunity comes, like I'm on my game, right? So it's very frustrating, but you have to look at what's in front of you and how do you make the most with the cards you're dealt, right? Some people have better cards than others, and that's unfortunately that's a reality of life, right? And you kind of just have to make peace with that. But And that being said, it's fine to get frustrated, right? At the end of the day,
Yeah,
but
it's natural.
you have to, you know, what skills are there that you can improve on, right? I think we all have stuff that we can improve on. And then also it kind of expand one of the things that helped me was just expanding my timeline out, right? Instead of, I'm not here in the next, 12 months, but if you kind of expand it out and it's like, okay, I have 3 to 5 years to kind of achieve what I want to achieve, then there's not as much pressure, right? That's not to say, kind of take your time and not have a sense of urgency, but you expand your timeline out and you kind of stop with these arbitrary numbers or timelines. And I think it's like the other thing was like I saw people leave and then they're still SDRs for another year, 18 months, right? So why would I leave Oracle, this well-known trademark company, that if I do kind of move in the next role, that's going to be looked at as highly, you know been on paper, that's going to look very well to the job market, whether it's internally or externally or what have you. So why don't I just pursue that, give myself a longer timeline, and from there we'll go from there, right? And luckily, the other thing I will say is I got, you know shout out to you, shout out to Tanner, shout out to my managers. Now I've gotten very lucky, I think, with from a manager standpoint, that I'm not like, oh, I don't have to leave, right? I know some people get, they have managers that they don't get along with and have disagreements with. So I think I've been very lucky in that aspect, right? They talk about like cards being dealt, right? Like that's, that, but it also takes a certain perspective to look at that, right? Okay, here's the cards I'm dealt. Here's what I'm thankful for with the cards I'm dealt. Okay, here's where I want to keep going. So yeah, shout out to you guys in the managerial structure.
Yeah. I mean, I know I mean, Tanner's awesome, and, like, there couldn't be a more supportive, like, place to be, and that does make it easier. What do you think ultimately landed you the job? Because I honestly I thought when we first worked together, like, you'd be one of the first people to get promoted. Like, you're very driven, smart, you can speak on the phone, which is kinda like the biggest thing in sales. What do you think ultimately, like, was it just finding the right match for you, or what do you think it was?
No, honestly, like I think it was just a matter like I missed a lot of those opportunities, right? And some of it was timing. There was a couple of interviews that I did really well, but it wasn't the right time. Things were moving around. But for the most part, like I'm not a very good interviewer.
Yeah, which is funny because you're very charismatic in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing about interviews, man. They're very strange. And I was thinking about this the other day, interviewing, like, you're gonna talk to me for 30 minutes? Like, what does that even mean? What is that how are you even gonna get any scope of who I am as a person? But yeah, go on.
Yeah. And it's difficult. And I think this is kind of the way I am with a lot of my relationships. Like I'm kind of I mean, I'm a goofball, right? And just in day-to-day life. But I don't like, that can come off as a lot when you do that right away, right? So you don't want to like come off like you're not taking things seriously, but it's difficult because how do like you said, how do show that while checking the boxes in a 30-minute window, especially over a Zoom, right? If I'm sitting there and I make a sarcastic joke, I can see your face here, but I can't see any of your other body language to like see if the joke hit or it didn't, right? And then you can kind of keep going. So it's definitely very difficult over Zoom to build that relationship even further. But yeah, I don't know. I think throughout my whole life, I've never been on first impression. Like I've never really been like I have to get comfortable with
Yeah.
things. Once I get comfortable, I can really excel. When I come out of my shell. I think for the most part, yeah, it is, interviewing's hard. You don't know anything about the person. They don't know anything about you. You have to check the boxes at the same time. So it's not, I don't know if it's a sense of being nervous, but it's just, I'm kind of contained a little bit versus, oh, if I know you, I can, joke with you, I can shoot the shit and kind of build more that humanly aspect of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Landing a joke over Zoom is a risky
It's
proposition.
hard, man.
Exactly what you're saying, because you don't know the person and, like, you can't tell if they're gonna react, and different interviews are different. Some call for that, some don't, and you sort of got to feel that out. Like, is this like, how is this person? Where's the vibe there?
Yeah.
And you got to hit those
Yeah.
marks correctly. And it's funny,
And I
reflect.
think, or yeah, go on.
No, you got it.
I was gonna say, originally you said like, how did I land the job? Was it a good fit? And I think it was, but you can't if you get off to a bad start with someone, I think it does. Like I there's definitely a couple of relationships in my life where you get off to a bad start and then you're, persistent on it, right? You're not too much, but it's if somebody gives you another chance when you don't meet first impressions, I almost feel like you're just over excelling on expectations, right? If you are a decent person, you have good character and someone's bar is low on you, and then you meet to what your standard really is, right? You can excel what their expectations are of you. So with Josh, like my director, I think that was kind of where I had a first interview and basically botched it. He ended up giving me another shot and then basically blew his expectations out of the water, right? Because I was able to kind of, you know, show my character and all that. And from there, I think it was, yeah. But there's been a couple of those situations in my life where now I have good relationships with the people, but I botched the first impression with them. So
Yeah.
I think it is, you can't just because somebody kind of, you rub someone the wrong way, the first time that you get to know them, right? It doesn't necessarily, rule out anything else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Probably getting the second opportunity after getting to botch one is huge because you've known maybe where the faults were, and then you can adjust there. But yeah, I mean, I think CSS is a great spot, like a great spot to be a rep. How's the experience been so far?
It's been good, right? Like once again, leadership's been awesome. It is, I think it is there's a um kind of a narrative that it's not sales, right? It definitely is. Like the amount of times I have to like convince someone to buy something, even internally, um, happens more often than not, right? So, but I think it's an org that, Oracle is investing resources in. And whenever you're looking for a new spot to land, that's where you want to be, you want to be in a spot where people are investing, right? Not divesting. So from that aspect, it's good. And then leadership's been awesome. So Josh, my director, right, he kills it from a sales perspective. Dave, my manager, is very, very good at sales. Connor, who is the original manager that hired me, he's more of the systematic, right? So there was definitely a lot of things to learn from him. I was only under him for like 3 months, but there's still, a lot that I was able to pick up, right?
So, off of like career. So, I wasn't gonna drop this week, but you can show, and I actually had this idea over the weekend. I've actually been thinking about hitting you up as soon as you posted that. I was gonna, I want to kind of talk to a lot of my old SDRs anyway because I want to hear their journey regardless. But I think with like Thanksgiving coming up, like it's important. Everybody thinks about family. It's important to just take stock in what you have and think about what others are going through and just like be thankful for where you're at. And one of the things that you posted, I saw it and it like resonated with me with your father. If you want to go through the story, you're going to be running the Boston Marathon for your dad who passed when you were young. If you want to go through that story, I think it's a powerful one and kind of what it means to you.
Yeah. So I'll just start from the beginning. So when I was born in Florida, right, my parents met out here in Boston area. My mom was a flight attendant. My dad was working for the Boston company, very successful in a short period of time. Got kind of burnt out of that. So my parents moved to Florida in the early 90s, right? So I was born in Florida. My brother was born there. Like a month in 2000, a month after my brother was born. So my brother's younger. I was born in 98. My brother's 2000. Month after my brother was born, my dad was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And I was very young to remember, but now that I'm a little older and I've been around a couple people with ALS, it's very, you feel very kind of grateful for life, right? Uh, but and I'll kind of get to that later. Um, so then My dad had it for almost 4 years, passed right before the age of 44. I was 5 years old. My brother was about to turn, he was 3 weeks away from being four. So later that year, 2004, my mom moved us. Her family's from Indiana, in South Bend, right by Notre Dame. So my mom moved us there to be closer to family. So grew up there. And I think like was always in sports growing up, but there was always something in me. Like I always really valued, and probably because I didn't have like that father figure in the household, right? I definitely had, father figures outside, but I always kind of valued that perspective. Like definitely had, coaches throughout sports growing up that whose, opinion and perspective I really valued. And then, luckily both my uncles, my mom's brother, and then my dad's brother have been, astronomical. Like I definitely, as good as my mom was as a mom growing up, um, I don't think people realize how important like having that father figure is for like some, teen growing up, right? Especially during the teenage years. And it's pretty combative, right? I didn't get along with both my uncles, right? Kind of growing up. But I think, and like if any parents listen to this, I heard this and I'm not a parent myself, but I can definitely relate from the other side. But I think, growing up, you know, from the age of, 1 to 8, right? You kind of idolize your parents. And then, from 8 to 16, you kind of demonize your parents throughout the adolescent years, right? You're growing up, you think you know it all, right? And then, 18 to 22 on, you more so humanize your parents. Maybe that's because you start drinking around that age. So you start to have a better time around your parents,
Yeah.
but still, right? So you idolize your parents. It's like it's a stage of life. So you idolize your parents, you demonize your parents, and then you humanize your parents. And I think like when I heard that, it was very helpful to like, the relationships in my family, right? Because every family kind of goes through, these different stages, whether they're getting along or not. So I think it is, I think kind of reminding yourself that, from my perspective as a son, it's like, okay, like, these are humans, these are their first time doing it, kind of giving them some empathy. So was always in sports growing up, back to that. And then I think the other thing I think was like you asked me about reading and podcasts, and I think that's kind of where I probably lacked a little bit of that, right? So that's kind of why I, seeked out some of those things. Um, for instance, like a Jordan Peterson or like a Chris Williamson or like a PBD. And then so this year, so it was kind of a full circle moment, right? So went through a high school, went to Indiana University for college, and then success was always kind of getting out of Indiana, right, and then getting out of the Midwest. So was offered the job at Oracle in my last year of school, and that was kind of my first ticket out of the Midwest, right out of Indiana. So they offered me a job out here, so took that. So it was kind of a full circle moment now, being able to run the marathon this year in the place where my dad grew up, on behalf of ALS TDI. So we can get more into that if you want, kind of like, um, why TDI, some of these things like, more ALS and all that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a beautiful, like, full circle, right? Coming back to where your dad was and then running the marathon for ALS and in his honor. Yeah, get into TDI and what they're doing and how they're trying to progress. Is it they're trying to progress research forward? I know like a cure would be incredible. You see, you mentioned the ice bucket challenge. Like people are aware of like the devastation ALS causes. I mean, it basically shuts you down completely, and they don't really know how to reverse it. So yeah, if you want to go into that,
Yeah. So ALS basically takes away, a person's ability to speak, to move. You're basically, you lose control over your nervous system, basically is what it is, right? So and most, sometimes there are cases, right? I think there's all these different versions of ALS. So like once they find a cure, it's not like everyone's gonna be fine, right? They're gonna have to develop, probably if I had to guess, hundreds of different cures to like, it's very complex with as a nervous system disease. But um, that being said, most patients that, or most people that have ALS, they still have their cognitive, um, functionalities intact. So I think that's, as I grow older now, I think that's kind of the thing that I don't know what the word is, not appreciate, but, seeing somebody, you know, kind of lose their ability to move, lose control over their body, but then still be able to be aware of what's going on cognitively, right? Is kind of, I think it's kind of heartbreaking, like, especially with like working out, like now there's all this research that, working out is super good for your cognitive abilities and all that. So it's like, damn, dude, like if I can't even move, like how do you kind of, spiritually stay strong, emotionally stay strong? You can't, speak, you can't play with your kids, all this other stuff. So the effects, and the other thing is like, you know, not everyone, I don't think anyone that knows someone with ALS, but anyone that does know someone with ALS, it's like that. It is, even if you're not directly related to them, I think it kind of is, you still kind of feel the devastation a little bit because you've seen the progression of the disease, and within a year or two, most of the times, like you know, you kind of just, you lose all your muscle, you lose all your ability to function. And that by that time you're in a wheelchair or a ventilator, right? Uh, so then ALS TDI is ALS Therapy Development Institute. So I'm running on behalf of them. So they are the major research arm for ALS. What I think one of the issues was, they're this big ALS research firm, but then when the Ice Bucket Challenge happened, I think they only got like, I think the Ice Bucket Challenge raised, like 200 plus $1 million. I don't think TDI got more than like $10 million of that, right? So you
No.
have this disease, right? And there's other associations that do research, but I think the thing about TDI is like they don't care. They're building out this infrastructure where they don't care who solves the disease or comes up with treatments for the disease, right? When you have other, you know, nonprofits play this game too, right? You're like, whoa, we want the money, right? But TDI is like, if somebody wants to figure out how to cure the disease, we'll build out the testing infrastructure to do that and run that through testing. So they kind of take on this more holistic approach. On top of they are also doing their own research for, um, you know, therapeutics and things like that. So I think and when you kind of attach your name to something, you want to know that the money is going to, the right place rather than, okay, we're going to take this money and we can just run our organization for the next, 10, 15 years. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the thing about TDI is they're all hands on. Many of them have also lost loved ones to ALS, so they have some sort of skin in the game, right? And from Nando, he's the CEO now, and then chief scientific officer, I believe, lost his best friend to ALS, right? So it's not like, oh, we can take all this money and we can run our organization. It's like, no, we've lost people, so we want to end this. So that's kind of the reason behind TDI there. Um, I'm going on a tangent now. Was there something else in there that you asked? I think.
No, that was it. I wanted to know kind of like why you're running. Yeah, who you're like kind of who's the backing of it all. And that was it. I think it's a great thing that you're doing. What are you doing to train? Like you're in the gym all the time. You're probably not ramping up for anything yet. Or you haven't done a marathon before, have you?
No, I did High Rocks in September, and
I
I've
saw
never
that.
been. Yeah, so that was good. It was tough, but then I kind of hurt my knee a little bit, like throughout the training process there. Now I'm going through a little bit of rehab, trying to build my knee back up before I start running. So I haven't even started running or training yet. Um, I want to shoot for like a 3:30 time. Everyone that I've talked to that's ran a marathon was like, don't do that because then you kind of start off fast and then you just kind of like you kind of phase out somewhere in the middle. But still, I want to build my knee back up, so I'm doing that. I'm going to a little bit of PT, doing some band work now, making sure I'm stretching more. So that's been kind of my process. And then my girlfriend's ran like 4 marathons, I think. So I'll probably rely on her a little bit for some of the training process, right? But I have heard running marathon isn't like, okay, I want an 8-minute mile for all 26 miles. The training process is more time on your feet, right? So if you can get, I've always been like, okay, I'm going to get an 8-minute mile every mile I run, right? But you want to do more like, if that's kind of where you normally sit, you probably want to run more like a 9-minute, 9:30 mile just to kind of get the time on your feet and build up the endurance. So um, it'll be good. I mean, I think I'm definitely gonna run into some issues with my knee, but like to that point, right? You know, I'm running on behalf of other people that can't even move. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like when you see them and you're around patients like that and people like that that kind of have just completely lost this ability, like you realize you don't really have problems, right? Like for instance, it's Thanksgiving week, so it's all about having a sense of gratitude, being thankful for those around you, right? And like for instance, we were on the way to, ALSTDI had their annual event a couple weeks ago, and I remember it was Saturday, and it's like 5 o'clock. I have a headache. I'm like dehydrated. I turn to my girlfriend. I'm like, we're in the Uber, and I'm like, I really don't. I got to talk to people that like I know, but I haven't seen in a while. And then you get there, and all of a sudden you see these people in wheelchairs that are, on life support basically, can barely breathe, can't speak. It's like, oh, I don't have problems. Like these are real problems. Like I don't have a headache. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
So I think there is, when you're around those kind of people, it definitely um, gives you a sense of gratitude, right? So as we do go into the holidays, I want people to kind of remember, like, as bad as family issues may be during this time, right? Um, there is, you know, there is something to be said about family, right? And I think it, you know, kind of like I said earlier, right? That humanizing aspect. Um, yeah.
That's perfect, man. Thanks for jumping on. It's awesome what you're doing. You're the man, and we'll talk soon.